Rev up your engines!
Well, the figures are out. 66% of Americans are worse off this year than last because of inflation. Nearly 1 in 3 workers, including people who make over 100 grand a year, are dipping into cash reserves or going into debt in order to buy things. Problem with credit cards, they're real handy. Then you get these outrageous interest fees, right? I mean, they charge these ridiculous interest rates on a credit card. You put $100,000 in the bank, you'll get $10 interest for the year, right? But if you borrow money from a credit card, you'll be paying 20-something% interest. I think it's disgusting that they're even allowed to do it, but hey, they're big corporations. They control our politicians and allow these usury rates to go on. Who do you think gets them elected? 72% of consumers say they have less money saved in the bank, and it's jumped from 55% just this February. That's how inflation's ramping up. People are spending too much money because things cost too much. Turns out that compared to last year, people are making 3% less money. It's not like people are making more and inflation rolls along. Everything costs more, but people aren't making more. Hence these clowns who say, oh, everyone's going to buy electric cars. Yeah, they're super expensive. Nobody's got any money. Yeah, sounds like the truth. You can build something. Doesn't mean people are going to buy it, right? If people don't have any money, they're going to go out and buy an electric car that's an unknown quantity, right? And the interesting thing is this is everybody. It's regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, or even earnings. It's affecting everybody. And of course, the feds are trying to raise the interest rates to stop the inflation, right? Well, then that actually, for a lot of people, make it even worse. Because if the interest rates go up, then they can afford things even less. Because then a car costs more. A house costs more. It's kind of a vicious cycle. They want to stop prices from getting too high. But people aren't going to be able to afford things because it costs them even more. I mean, my wife at one point in time was in real estate, and she even said, you really can't win because if the interest rate goes up, they got to drop the prices of houses. Interest rate is up. Doesn't matter what you pay for the house, your monthly payment's still going to be the same, right? The price of the house goes down, but the interest rate goes up. And then when the interest rates go down, guess what? The prices of houses go up. That's why these houses are outrageous now. For years, the interest rate was extremely low, so then people charge more money for the houses. Whatever they can get away with a monthly payment, they're going to try to get the highest price that they can. And of course, the same thing's going to happen with the car manufacturers. They say, we're not discounts, we're making too much money, selling less cars at a higher profit. Oh yeah? Well, nobody's buying them because they cost too much. Yeah, that'll bite them in the rear end, right? They'll have no choice but to lower prices. They'll have a bunch of cars sitting on a lot that nobody's going to buy. That's one reason I tell people, don't believe it when you go to a car dealer and there's no cars on the lot. They got them hidden someplace else. Where? To make it look like it's scarce. Well, we got to charge more. There's guys waiting behind you to buy cars, and there's only a few here. You might not get one. You know, just another gimmick that they're pulling. Any fool can see through that one, right? Rate goes up. They got to lower the price of the cars because Americans only care about what their monthly payment is. And if the interest rates are high and the prices are high, the monthly payment's too high, people won't buy them. Rob 54 says, I've been told tractor trailer drivers periodically monitor the pH of the diesel engine coolant so it doesn't corrode things. If this is true, why isn't this an issue for car owners? It actually is, but nobody ever checks the stuff, except for really good mechanics. I mean, I've got pH test strips, and if you really want to test it, you just stick them in, it'll show you, and it'll have from good, in between, and bad. The best way to do your coolant is just go by years, right, and mileage. Take Toyota, they make a real good coolant. They make coolants good for 7 years or 150,000 miles. Don't have to change it very often. So every 7 years or 150,000 miles change it, just be on the safe side. What the heck, you know? But if you are curious, you go to Amazon anywhere and buy coolant pH test strips. You can buy them, test your own. If you don't want to buy them, go to a mechanic who can do it. But it's so easy to do. It's kind of a worthwhile thing to do yourself. You know, they also have strips that you can do for testing your brake fluid, clutch fluid, all those fluids. Their strips are tested. Now, they're different in the brake fluid. It's not pH. It's checking for other metals, copper and stuff, to see if the lines are wearing out. And then they ruin the fluid in the brake system, which will then eat up all the expensive parts, so that you want to flush the fluid on the brake system, too, like every 5-6 years. The truck drivers do it because those guys go millions of miles, and they want to do something efficient. efficiently, so they test the pH in their coolant. You can do it in your car too if you want to. Toyota fan says, how can I protect my 2007 Camry hybrid catalytic converter? It burns a quart of oil every 1,000 miles. I want to protect the catalytic converter from an early demise because of this oil consumption. What can I do? Okay, well, when I first read this, I thought, well, people steal the Prius catalytic converters because they're huge. They get a lot of money. You can get one of those locking guards that you can put over it so they can't steal it. But you're talking about the catalytic converter wearing out because the oil's burning. Well, unfortunately, your car burns oil, and there's nothing you can do about it, eventually clogging the catalytic converter. Because as the oil burns, carbon gets in those honeycombs. You ever watch any of my videos or go to an auto parts store if you want to see, tell them, give me a catalytic converter, and look through the hole, and you'll see a bunch of tiny little honeycombs. Well, the oil gets on there, burns, fuses, and then it clogs them up, and then it can't burn the hydrocarbons. Then you got to buy another catalytic converter. And of course, if yours is clogged up and you buy a new one, guess what? The new one's going to clog up too. Whatever period of time it takes, it will clog that one up too. Unfortunately, other than rebuilding your engine, because those have weak piston rings, there's nothing you can do. You could put a little heavier weight oil and it would burn probably a little bit less oil, but the engine was designed for a light oil. You put a heavy oil in, you're going to wear the cams and stuff faster too. So it's sort of like, 6 of this, half dozen of that. Basically, see how long it lasts. I mean, my grandson's got a Toyota. It burns a ton of oil too, and he's been driving it 5 years, and the cat hasn't clogged up yet. So you never know. But you can't stop it. Once it's burning oil, it's starting to clog stuff up. Joey says, are Nano Diamond technology going to be the future of electric cars? It's another new technology. It's been around a little bit. Really fast charging, and in the smaller applications, they can actually charge themselves. Realize this stuff is using space-age technology. It's super expensive, and as far as it stands now, it doesn't work in big things yet. It's just too super expensive. There's so many different battery technologies out there. Nobody knows what's going to work, what's going to actually be able to power a big machine. I'll give you a perfect example. I made a video the other day. I put a lithium-ion motorcycle battery in my Yamaha 1300 motorcycle because it had a dead lead-acid one, which keeps going bad, and I decided to put a lithium-ion one. Now, it was only $98. It wasn't super expensive. It starts it, runs great, so it can do 10,000 times, right? It doesn't take much to start a motorcycle. Boom, up it goes, right? Not a big old car engine. It takes a lot more energy. You can buy lithium-ion batteries for a car, but they start at like $600-700. Priced out of beyond, no one's going to buy them, right? Race car guys will because they weigh less. They want less weight, so they'll put one of those in. But most people are going to spend $600-700 up for a car battery. And it's the same thing with this Nano Diamond stuff. It's phenomenally interesting technology, but can it be phased up to do cars? No one knows yet. Just like everybody's talking about solid-state batteries for cars. It's a radical thing. It will change everything. Well, they haven't made any that work in cars yet, that don't short themselves out inside. Since they're totally solid state with no liquid, they have a tendency of growing spiky crystals that short the whole thing out. Nobody knows if they'll ever get that so that you can make them. They're big enough to run cars. They won't cost $1 billion, and they'll last a long time and recharge fast. No one knows yet what is going to work. And that is interesting technology. It works great. I believe they use them in those black boxes in the planes when they crash to keep all the information in them, right? But, we're talking expensive crap here. Who says, I have an irritated throat in my Honda Civic. My rack and pinion is leaking. Could that cause fumes in my car? Well, of course it could, because understand one thing. You got a 2000 that's still got hydraulic pump. It doesn't have electronic steering, right? The pressure in a hydraulic power steering system could be upwards of 1,500 pounds per square inch pressure. A lot of pressure. Say you get a little pinhole in a hose. It's going to squirt. All that pressure is going to squirt all over the place. And eventually, it's going to squirt on the exhaust manifold. It's going to smolder and stink and irritate the heck out of you. Now, the fluid itself doesn't really do much of anything. It's fine fluid, but it's going to spray all over the place. Eventually, it's going to get on hot engine parts, and it'll start to smolder. So my advice is fix it sooner than later. Because, of course, if you got a leak and you don't fix it and your fluid gets too low, the pump, instead of pumping fluid, it'll pump air, and it'll burn itself out real fast. So it'll burn the pump out, too, if you don't fix the leak. MKS says, I have an MKZ with low oil pressure, 2014, 127,000 miles. Sometimes after I drive on the highway over 20 miles, I come to a stop, the low oil pressure light comes on, stays on a few seconds, and goes off. This only happens the first couple miles after I exit the highway. What could this be? Well, it's probably that your engine is idling a little bit too low. It's used to going at higher speed. You come to a stop, it goes lower. When it goes lower, the oil pressure will get a little bit low. go. Now, if you don't hear the engine going clacker, 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 it's not going to hurt anything. You might do my video, make your car run better with a little spray cleaner. Clean the mass airflow sensor. Clean the throttle on the vehicle because they get dirty, they'll do that. They'll idle weird after you come off the highway, and then the oil pressure gets low because the engine isn't spinning the pump fast enough to make it go. That's generally what it is. But on the other hand, if it's clacking when it's doing that, you're going to have to fix it. You have actual low oil pressure, and that can damage your engine. But most of the time it's because it's idling too long. Cleaning it up, maybe tuning it up, can often fix it.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.